Hello, everybody. I think one of the strangest places to be is in this healing space where you're not quite healed, or you're not even close to being healed, but you're not still in that completely frozen space. I still have very much functional freeze. Um, there are days where it feels like I'm constantly going uphill, or I'm so exhausted that I find that I need to stay in bed. Hello, my name is Kathy. This is my channel, Awakening Waves. This is a space where I hope that we can walk beside each other during our healing journeys. And I'm hoping that as we all start to heal and transmute all these emotions that we've come to recognize and to allow to leave our bodies. Not necessarily, you still have memories and things like that, and those memories can bring up emotions, but at least we can look at it from a position of almost like a detachment where we're not highly invested in that emotion so much that it re traumatizes us. I have my notes. You guys, I'm always going to have my notes until I can learn how to talk exactly the way that I want. I'm not the type of person to rehearse. So, as far as this in between space, I definitely feel like that is me right now. I used to be mom, wife, mom, and then daughter, and then sister-in-law, friend. And I was all these things existing at the same time, but I wasn't doing it for me. And I was doing it so that I could help everyone else function in their lives. And I think that now it's been since October 2022. So we're a little past 3.5 years now that I've been recovering from a complete, you know, overload, overwhelm of my nervous system. And there's no one phrase. I mean, the old phrase is a nervous breakdown, but it does have to do with your nervous system. So, and your nervous system doesn't necessarily break, but what it does is it becomes very highly armored to the point where functioning outside of quiet, calm, and not addressing those emotions and what is going on in your life. Sorry. I'm like sitting on my bed in my bedroom, and my back is bothering me today. So, right there. Anyway, um, what happens is that eventually you start to outgrow your survival mode. Even though you could have been in survival mode since you were a child. And from my looking at my life, I have been. And I think most people over the age of 30 can feel like that they spent their whole life in survival mode. Most people, I would say quite a few people, are refusing to come to terms with that. Because they're like, I have a beautiful life. I have nothing to be traumatized about. It doesn't matter if, things happen, challenges happen, people die, you get divorced, you lose a job, all these things that can happen, like miscarriages, children dying, living in a war zone. God forbid, that's got to be one of the hardest things that can ever be. And for those people, my heart goes out to you. And I hope that it does something for you in the way that as you survive through this and hopefully past it, that you'll come to terms with what you lived through and that it won't keep you bogged down in dense, hard feelings and emotions, and that you'll be able to find joy and find happiness and love and live within that and not afraid to go out your door. Some people live in the United States and other, well-developed countries, and I don't know what third world countries are like. I can't say because I've not researched that or anything, but when your life is so hard that you can't even go out the door without wondering if you're going to come home, that is got to be very difficult. And I wish you nothing but blessings and some way to cope with it and get beyond it so that you can live your life with those things in spite of all that you've been through. And even the rest of us who maybe people will think we've had it easy in comparison, but we're not here for comparison. We're here to support each other through trauma, through what we've survived, and how to live and transmute all that trauma emotion to keep it, to let it, or I should say, let it out of our bodies so that we can live emotionally, physically, spiritually, all that stuff, so that we can live at peace as much as we can within this crazy world we all inhabit. One of the things I have here is why healing can feel lonely. I don't know that I felt lonely until this past year, this past new year. And here it is, it's almost half the year is almost gone, right? I don't know that I want to say that I feel lonely, like there's nobody around me. I have my children. I keep in contact with my brothers. I don't have any friends that I communicate with on a daily basis who check in on me or I check in on them. It's all it's friendly, but it's not deep. And that's the way life is. Because sometimes anything else is a little too much, and that's the way it's been for me. I mean, when this man, his name was Angel, by the way, when Angel passed away, I was able to talk to people on the phone for a little bit, but then as the months went on, it started getting harder for me. It started getting harder for me to communicate with anyone, to be out of the house. I am almost housebound. There are some times where an entire week goes by where I don't get out of the house. Most of the time, my son is with me on the weekends, and I drive him to school on Monday mornings, and that's the majority of it. I used to take him to allergy appointments, and I do doctor's appointments and things like that. But anything big, like his graduation's coming up, and that doesn't feel too bad because you can kind of create your own little bubble. But I'm supposed to go to an orientation, an all-day orientation with him, with people I don't know, who have no idea what I've been through, and I don't know what they've been through. But am I going to be by myself, or are they all going to be with their spouses or their other children? How's that going to work, How am I going to handle that? And that is the big thing. And then, just the loneliness part. I need community. I'm coming to realize that now. And that's what I'm trying to build here on YouTube to some degree, is community where we can imagine that we're all sitting side by side or across from each other at a table while we snack on nachos and fresh fruit and whatever else you want. um, it's just, that's still a work in progress. And I think that's what healing is all about. It's just a work in progress. We are all trying to be, as humans, we're all trying to be love. And it sounds kind of corny, right? I mean, I just want to be love. Because to me, love was not something you said unless you meant it and that you had something invested in the people that you said it to, like your family, your spouse, a best friend. To say it to people I don't know, I'm coming to realize that to love myself is to love everybody. We are all part of this immense collective of souls. We were all fractals of this one giant collective that is love. In that, people who have near death experiences, they come back and they talk about that emotion. But it's more than just an emotion, it's a way of being. You see the people that, you first thing in the morning when you're going to work or something like that, and they're all so happy, and you're like, oh, just shut up, like, can't take that right now. But imagine if everyone felt that love, that high, that sunny disposition, but imagine it as with knowing everything. That's got to be amazing. And I would, at this point in my healing journey, I would give anything to be able to have that peace and that confidence and that strength, just to know that you exist and everyone else exists and we're all equal and there's nothing to get annoyed about. There's nothing to beat your head over about, There's no struggle. It's all everything, And my next thing is the discomfort of uncertainty. That is the biggest thing, right? Because when you lose everything, you don't even know what the next minute will be like. And to some degree, that is basically the foundation of spirituality, is that we are all existing right now, and now, and now, and now. There is no future. There's no past. Everything we feel like we've experienced is all now. And that's quantum physics and stuff like that. And it just is very difficult for this brain to wrap around. And I'm positive, though, that my soul knows it and that someday I'll know it and it'll be okay. Be more than okay. One of the things was coming to terms that event, that moment where everything just stopped and everything before was now after, and that what I was, I'm no longer. I'm not that daughter. I'm not that sister. I'm not that, wife. I'm not that mother. I'm someone totally different. It has completely changed me, almost as if, I suppose, as if I had a traumatic head injury. And in a way, you kind of do, because your brain rewires itself. And I'm not quite sure the exact science about it, but there's something that goes in there that the neurons get rewired or something. And now, in order to come back, it says come back to ourselves, but we're not coming back to our bodies, ourself. our personality. We're coming back to our soul to understand that our soul is what's living this life, not our bodies. Our bodies are what our souls are in, and we're living a human life experience through the human body and the decisions we make and etc. You know, um, one of the things I do miss about myself is that I was very easy going, I guess you could say, for the most part, unless I felt like I needed to control something, and then it had to be just perfect. And I don't think that I was the one who always had to have something perfect. I think only when I felt like I was having others judge me did I insist that everything be perfect. People come into my house had to be as spotless as I could make it and smell good. It's amazing how your house cannot smell good when you have 5 cats. Ugh, and a dog. One of the things that you do go through is as you're healing and you're starting to think about venturing forward, and in my case, creating community and actually meeting with people face to face, in person, and going deeper than like standing in a line at a grocery store and having a conversation with someone about the weather or the prices or something, right? And because, my story, there's a lot of shame and guilt and disappointment in myself. And I don't want to have others feel that about me. I don't want people to judge me and say that I'm a guilty person, that I'm shameful, that I deserve what I got. I don't think anybody deserves to suffer. Nobody deserves to suffer. If we didn't have to suffer, we wouldn't learn these lessons. But at the same time, if we didn't have to suffer, then our world would be pretty peaceful. But again, in the spirituality, they talk about the reason why we have Earth. Earth is a school. We're supposed to be learning lessons. And lessons can come in the worst possible way, or in the most benign ways, or in the most joyful ways. Everything is a lesson. How you will react to somebody's trigger. That's a nice word that they've been using and banting about for a while now. What triggers you? What makes you upset? And with me, the connection, I'm afraid, I think on a very visceral and deep level, that I'll be disappointed, because I've been disappointed in so many ways and so many times in my life that it's very hard for me to trust. And that is going to be one of my most difficult hurdles, steps to get over, is because not only can't I trust other people, but to some degree, I can't trust myself. I've self-abandoned. I've self-disappointed. It goes on. And, I can imagine that other people are feeling the same way. When you're in a healing space and you're on a healing journey and it's not going as quick as you think it should, it's disappointing. You think you're failing. You think you're failing your family, your friends, the world, yourself. but you're not. You're taking the time to heal something that was very, very burnt out. And you need to replace things. I mean, imagine like a, a display board or a control board of a nuclear power plant. Because when I think of what happened, how I reacted to the news that this man died, it was like there was a nuclear meltdown. And all those buttons, just that whole motherboard thing, just kind of short circuited. And now I need to replace all those wires. Some I might be able to save, but most of them have been shorted out. And so now I have to relearn how to be okay if someone doesn't turn out to be a friend, you know? Is it more about them and what they feel for towards me and maybe how I make them feel? If I make them feel uncomfortable, or if I make them feel like I'm trying too hard or they're trying too hard, and it makes them feel less than, then that's probably a good thing if it doesn't work out, because then we're not in alignment with each other and we're not going to be there to support each other the way that we could. One of the biggest things I'm going through right now is that my son, a week from Sunday, is going to graduate from high school. And that moment is the moment that I start the countdown to when he goes off to college. And it's such a big thing for me. He's my last child. He's the first child who's going off to college. He has got this plan that is so huge, and I'm so proud of him. And I hope it works out for him. And at the same time, I'm worried that I'm going to lose that connection with him. I watched my mother go through that with all her sons. They love her. She passed away in August 2023. They loved her in their own way. And that is the bane of a mother's existence, a father's existence, is that you have to let your children go off and build their own lives. And you can hope that there is a bond there that keeps them coming back. And I hope that's the way it is. And he's struggling right now. He's got a lot of, issues himself that he has to deal with, that he's been dealing with for quite some time now. And I worry about him too. Is he going to be safe? I think he can take care of himself, but at the same time, it's just like, is he going to come to me when he needs to have a conversation? Maybe he just feels overwhelmed. Excuse me. So, the biggest thing is that my life, even now to some degree, has always been about caregiving and survival. And, I have him going off, but I have 2 other children who are living their lives. And their plan is not to stay with me for the rest of their lives, or for the rest of mine for that matter. And that leaves sort of a scary space to be in. And I know that there's been millions of people who have felt that empty nest. But I feel hopeful because I'm building something here. I've got this YouTube thing, and I've got plans for some writing projects, and I've got plans for doing other income streams. And those plans have been in the works for quite some time now. But then, I've been healing. I've been focusing on that more because sometimes it feels a little too much. Excuse me. I would say a little before a year had passed after Angel passed away that I came across the mention of Julia Cameron, and I apologize, I don't have her exact name, but I'll put her name and a link in the description. And she has a book called The Writer's something. I will come to that in my brain. I'll think about that. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. But I'll put it in the description. And basically, it's a book talking about a writer's the different ways that you can really invest yourself into your writing, into your writer's personality, so that you're living that creative life. I think I've always wanted to be a writer. I think since I really got into writing, so since I was like early teens, and I had that ultimate story in my head, and I still have this one story that's been percolating for quite some time now. And, you know, I was doing what she calls morning pages. And basically, you write 3 pages of something. It doesn't matter if it's a story or if it's just like a journal type thing, or if it could be recipes. It could be anything as long as you're writing longhand in a notebook. And I have like, I don't even know where I put them, but I have like 6 or 7 of them, front and back, full. At first, I was doing the 3 pages. And then I got into talk therapy, and I was still doing that a lot. I was really investing the time. Sometimes it could take me an hour and a half to write those 3 pages, but I was doing it. I even looked to Pinterest for prompts, for journal prompts, whether it be shadow work or just journal prompts, story ideas, whatever. And as time went on, it started to get a little shorter because I was starting to get antsy with it. And then she had her leaving. She had to leave for maternity leave. And that felt heavy for me. I felt abandoned, even though logically I know she had to have a baby and then go through those. I think she was gone for 6 months. So, it was a long time. And when you develop a rapport with someone and you feel like you're being understood, when they're not there anymore, it's a hole. And it became impossible for me to write anymore. Almost like a writer's block, I guess. And then she came back, but then she had to leave again. So I just stopped writing. And I'd like to say I'm going to take it back up anytime now, but I don't know. I don't want to promise myself that. Say, oh, I'm going to start doing this and say it publicly. And then, 6 months down the road, people are going to say, hey, how's that writing going? No. I'm hoping that I can go somewhere with it. But we'll see. And I have here why transition periods often feel foggy instead of magical. It's foggy because your brain, your ego brain, just wants to come up with solutions to everything. And it gets so busy in there. And it's almost like, like you're on a bicycle and, you're in the middle of the fog and you can see right in front of you, but way ahead of you, you can't even see the trees because it's so busy. I mean, you're pedaling along and you're just staying right there because, you want to be able to see where you're going, but at the same time, you can't see where you're going. It's just it's crazy. But at the same time, you learn how to handle that. You learn how to say, okay, it's foggy right now, so I'm going to rest for a little bit. And then when I get back up, or if I start moving around, or if I decide I want to do this or that, then you can go ahead and you'll start doing that. And then it doesn't seem so foggy anymore. Or you can come across a problem or an emotion, something comes up all of a sudden, or maybe you just remembered that traumatic event, like the moment you were aware of whatever happened, that cold zing that comes through. But then each time you remember it, you're remembering it differently. And each time you remember it differently, you're sort of removing yourself from it. It's the spiral as you go up. Each time you come around to visit that thing, no matter what it is, you're always going to be this much more above it. And that means that you have distance. That means that you have discernment. That means that you have the capacity to look at it without re-traumatizing yourself eventually. And sometimes that takes a lot of time. It does for me. I did a lot of deep diving, though, in this past year, 365 days plus. Having the talk therapy was huge because I got a lot of frustration, I got a lot of anger, I got a lot of sadness and grief. I cried a lot. Almost every appointment I cried. And now when I cry, I come up here to my room and I let myself cry. Because when I cry in front of my kids, I sort of feel guilty because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to help me. And I don't want to put them in that position because that's a very tough place to be. And that's kind of traumatizing to a child, no matter what the age. You know, when my mother would cry, I'd be like, Mom, why are you crying? You know, and she would tell me. Sometimes it was because, especially towards the end of her life, I don't want to be here. I want to go and have my own place. And then I'd have to be the rational person and say, Mom, this is your home. You know? I'm sorry you have to be here. And I wish I could take care of you. Well, then why can't you? You know, and she would cry and I can't even imagine, you know, when you're sick like that and you know your life is coming to an end. And your children aren't around you like you had hoped they would be. You know, we all deal with our lives. We all have busy lives. And it's easy to forget the people. You try not to. You know? Towards the end, it was very difficult for me to see her. I felt very sad for her. I felt very guilty that I didn't do enough for her. And that last month of her life, I really didn't. It was very hard to go see her. I knew that she was starting to actively die. And it was very hard for me to approach her. And you know, I was still very much in grief and in guilt and shame and just trying to exist. The point being that, you know, that spiral thing, it's all about growth, because every time you visit something and you know you're getting that distance and you're getting that ability to look at it and say, well, what did I learn from this? Even if it sounds corny, what did I learn from this? I learned that there's pain when someone dies. You know, I learned that all the plans that I made were for nothing. I learned that I broke up my marriage for nothing. But then at the same time, as crazy as it sounds, you know, Angel came back into my life maybe to break up my marriage, to allow me to be in a position where I thought that I could break up my marriage and not be married to the man who I thought I loved until death do us part. And to think that I could have a better or a future with someone, even if it was him. And it feels ironic to me that that is the lesson. But at the same time, this created a very huge spiritual awakening. I think I've been spiritually awakening since I was a young teenager. I've had a lot of experiences that were supernatural, that were spiritual in nature. And there's no doubt in my mind that we are part of something bigger. That when we die, we don't, our body dies, but our essence, our soul, our existence does not. We continue. And the people who have gone before us are still around us, just on a different plane. And we have to learn how to lift ourselves up, our essence, our vibrations, our energy, however you want to call it, because they're operating on such a faster, expansive, existence, vibration, whatever you want to call it. And they have to meet us. But if we can't lift ourselves up out of feeling sad and grief stricken and mad and all these dark emotions, we're not going to be able to meet with their life. It's just not very possible. It might be not impossible, but it would be very difficult. So let me see what I have here. The whole purpose of this is that maybe this space of in between isn't a failure. Maybe it's the shoreline between who we were and who we are becoming. Who even am I now? I'm slightly different than I was yesterday. I mean, I've been going through such an amazing experiences, like this past month in particular, just getting closer and closer to his graduation from high school. It's a monumental, huge thing for me right now. And there's something happening after that is a little uncomfortable for me, but he really needs me to be there for him. So I'm gonna be. And if it makes other people uncomfortable, that's on them, not on me. And I apologize for doing them. I'm apologizing, but I'm not apologizing. So, here's what I think. I would like to leave you with the idea that I guess what we're doing is we're becoming ourselves, and that's what that is. But I have a quote by Nikita Gill, and I guess she's a poet. She's about 38, I think, 39. Hold on, I've got my kid here who's texting me, believe that or not, and she's insistent. I have to tell her videoing. So, anyway, Nikita Gill, and I'll put her name in there, and she's an author, she's a poet, and she's done other things as well. She says, in times of transformation, be the wound, be the bruise it becomes, be the story told after, be the straw that turns to gold, be the ring that holds impossible power, be the ivy-covered primordial tree, its bark full of secrets, be the quiet after the hurricane, the aftermath before the chaos is cleared away. Be the ancient thing with the unknowable name. Be all of it. Or be none of it. After the wreckage, you choose. I promise healing will find you, no matter what you become. And to me, that says we all have this hope. You have to have hope because you can't exist without it. Hope is the precursor to love, to community, to collective togetherness, to knowing everything. And I just feel like I'm coming there. I'm getting there. It's just taking me a while. And again, I'm going to say, I'm not a therapist. I'm not anybody who is professional in any way. I don't have any initials after my last name. I am your average American mother who I became a stay-at-home parent, and I invested my entire life to my children and to my husband and to my extended family and to my friends. And I came to a point where I didn't have any of that. I woke up and I have my children, but I'm not the same person anymore. So our relationship has changed. It's not the same. So I'm not the same. But I know that what I'm growing into, what I'm becoming aware of, what I'm awakening to, what my light is trying to show you is that we have hope. And when we have hope, we have love. With love, we have community, we have togetherness, we have life. And we can do this together. If you are in a place where you feel like you don't want to exist anymore, I will have the number that you can either call or text, and you can talk to someone. And I'll tell you myself that you're important. Your existence on this earth is important. You are needed by me and by everyone else around you, by your family, by your friends. If you feel like you don't have anybody, I know that feeling. But you do. When you become awakening into your spirituality, into your soul, so that you can know that there's more to this existence and that the life that we're living, the suffering that we're experiencing, is everything that we are choosing to do. Believe it or not. That sounds harsh. I didn't choose to feel this way, but you kind of did. As souls, when we decided to incarnate onto this planet, we chose this life. We chose these challenges and little things along the way that were tapping us on the shoulder and saying, hey, that's probably not the path you should be taking. And you ignore it, and then something big like this happens where your life blows up. I bet you could probably think of all those little taps on the shoulder where spirit was trying to tell you, yeah, your path doesn't go that way. Maybe you should take a little bit of a right. Maybe you should go left. Maybe you should go up or go down, whatever. When you don't listen to your inner self, when you don't listen to your higher self, when you don't listen to your guides. And believe it or not, they're telling you, they're talking to you all the time. You just have to find a way to listen, to hear them. And the way to do that is to go within yourself and find that space that's quiet so you can hear them. Meditation is what they say is what brings it. And it's not just sitting with your eyes closed, not listening to anything, and keeping thoughts out of your brain. There's all sorts of ways to meditate. Through sound, through nature, sitting, and just, I haven't been able to hear My guides, I have a couple times in my life, but it's been a while. Um, if we were sitting next to each other or across the table from each other, I would reach out my hand and I'd say, take my hand. I've got you. You have me. So let's sit next to each other. Let's walk next to each other. Let's journey next to each other. I'm not in front of you. You're not behind me. You're not in front of me. I'm not behind you. We're next to each other. We're not above each other. We're not below each other. We're equals. And sometimes we're not exactly in the same space of journey, but we will be eventually. And we're just all here helping each other to go home. And home, we're all not supposed to survive this life, right? That's one way of looking at it. In the meantime, we have to find each other. We have to love each other. We have to support each other. We have to be community. So let's be community. If you want to talk, put your stuff down in the comments. Let me know how you're doing. I'll try to answer. I'm not really getting any comments right now, so I'll answer your comment as best as I can. And be nice. If you got those people who are not, you want to say something, criticism, go ahead, criticize. But be nice about it. You don't have to be mean. Nobody has to be mean. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to let you go. It's been a little over 45 minutes now. And I hope that you've heard me and you know that I love you. Take care.